Hello everyone. Well, it's September and that means it's officially the beginning of spooky season. And man, I have so many books I'm going to talk about between now and the end of the year. I'm probably going to up my uploading schedule. I'm going to increase it a little bit just so I can get through all these amazing books that you want. Of course, the beginning of spooky season also means the beginning of your wallet saying, oh my God, why am I so empty all the time season? But if you're not spending your money on horror books, then what are we even doing here? What, you're gonna pay your bills, pay your rent, and eat food? Come on, priorities, people. But I'm gonna get you started with these two amazing books. These are both pre-orders coming out in October. And this is gonna be a great place for you to start your Halloween season. And as always, I want to remind you that I also have books for sale, and if you want to purchase any of the books you see on your screen, you can do so at the link in the description. I also have a link down there if you want to buy me a copy on Ko-Fi.com. All right, let's get started. So the first book I want to tell you about today is fantastic. It's called B-Movie Bloodbath by Isaac Nightingale. This really took me by surprise because you would think with a name like B-Movie Bloodbath, it would be kind of cheesy, kind of campy, over the top, and one that you might enjoy but then quickly forget about after you've read it. But actually, it's quite the opposite. There is a lot of blood in here. There are a lot of action sequences, a lot of creatures of different varieties, but the narrative is really good. This is the first in a series. And this author has done a fantastic job in setting up the main character for this series and the world in which he lives and his background and how he got to where he is. It's just a thrill ride from start to finish. And I was pleasantly surprised at how good this first novel by him was. I'm going to give you the highlights because there's a lot in here that you're going to have to discover for yourself. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. But it concerns a 19-year-old, and his name is Isaac Nightingale. Yes, that's also the name of the author of this book. There's a reason for that. You'll find out at the beginning. It's kind of a meta kind of thing. It's excellent. But he prefers to be called Knight. The book starts out, he's a 19-year-old kid. He's kind of average, did well in school but didn't excel. He has friends but he's not exactly popular. He has two loving parents, they get along great. He has a longtime girlfriend and they're looking forward to a life together. Marriage, kids, growing old together. You know, all that good stuff, right? Puppies and rainbows. But of course this is a horror novel. So that's not going to last very long because one day as they're walking through the woods, they're attacked by a couple of vampires. He is left for dead, and she is brutally slaughtered. Of course, the next day when people find them in the woods, he's still alive, covered in her blood, with her body right next to him. And nobody's going to believe vampires did it, of course. And so he is convicted of her murder and gets thrown into prison. And there is where the story of Knight and what he's eventually going to become really takes off, because he's going to have to learn to toughen up a little bit more. He's not weak by any measure at the beginning, but he's not prison tough. He will meet some unlikely friends in there, and he'll also meet the worst of society. You know, skinhead Nazi white supremacist type guys, and people who would just as soon slit your throat with a shiv as they would to even look at you. And of course he is seen as this young guy, fresh meat, and he's going to have to learn to toughen up and toughen up quick if he wants to survive. And he does with the help of his people he meets inside that he'll befriend. He grows to get tough. Eventually he will get out of prison after years and years. But why he gets out of prison is part of the narrative, and I don't want to tell you why, but you'll have to read about that section where he's in prison and how it changes him. Because now he's only got one thing on his mind. He wants revenge. He can't get the death of his girlfriend out of his mind, and he wants to find these two vampires that did this to her and end their lives. And once he's on the outside, he kind of becomes this anti-hero kind of guy. He doesn't really like violence. He doesn't really He doesn't want to hurt anybody who's innocent, but if you try to get in his way of exacting his revenge plan, whether you're human or otherwise, you will pay the consequences. He gets in his possession a couple of possessed guns, 2 guns that are possessed. You have to read about that. I love that part of the book. That's his main weapon of choice for killing these evil creatures. He's also going to find out that the world actually has more than just vampires. In this book, there are werewolves, there are demons, there are other things that are harder to describe or put in a category, other kinds of creatures. Some of them are actually benevolent, though. Some of them actually want to help him, to let him know what he needs to do to eradicate the ones that are causing death and destruction. But he's going to go on the hunt for all these things. He's going to, on the outside, he's going to meet a couple people that are going to help him kind of train. Now that he's physically able to take care of himself against humans, because he learned that in prison, now he's got to do the same against these evil creatures of the night. And he will. The action sequences in here are just fantastic. They'll really get your heart to pumping. Your adrenaline will start to flow. The good guys in this book are great. You will be behind them. You'll be rooting for them. The bad guys, the bad people, the bad creatures, they're all villainous. And that's just the way you want it in a book like this, you know. This is gritty. This is noirish. Has a lot of action, has a lot of blood, has a lot of brutality. And you're really, really going to enjoy the overall narrative as well, because all these big action, bloody set pieces are there for a reason. They're not just there to, you know, they're not just there just because. Let's put it that way. They're there because they fit the narrative of the story, which makes it a very unforgettable tale. And because this is the first book in the series, oh man, I can't wait to see what's coming next. The book does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger there, when he meets a new friend that he trains with, and they're going to go on their next adventure in the next book, something even more devilish than what they faced in this one. And I personally cannot wait for that. This book has everything you want in a horror book. It is fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. And you can pre-order your copy at the link in the description. B-Movie Bloodbath. You're going to thank me for this one. And the next book is also coming out in October. And this is called The Night House by Joe Nesbo. He's mainly known for his gritty detective books and thrillers. But this is a full-on horror novel that goes into some weird psychological territory. About a guy named Richard, and it's kind of a coming-of-age story for the first half. And Richard's a kid. He's kind of a bully. His parents died in a fire. He saw them both die in this horrific fire. And he's kind of a bully and a mean kid to others. And one day, him and his friend Tom decide to make a prank phone call from a phone booth. Do you remember phone booths? Because this is before the time of the internet. They decide to make a prank phone call to a random name they pick out of the phone book. And oh my God, right away you know this book is going to be great, because he makes Tom, his friend, make the phone call, but the phone booth eats his friend. Like the phone booth and the phone inside actually eats his friend in a very bloody, terrifying sequence in that book. And he tries to convince the police about that, but of course, come on, who's going to believe that? So he is a person of interest. He is a suspect in this boy's murder, and there have been other strange murders and disappearances that have happened, and they are trying to connect him not only to this one, but to some of the other ones as well, because of his troubled past. And then we're going to fast forward some years later when he goes to his high school reunion. Now he's a famous author. He's wrote a book about him, about these events that have happened. It's a horror book, but it's actually about these things that have happened. And he's going to his high school reunion to apologize for being such a jerk and such a bully back in the day, but they don't seem to see it that way, which is strange. People are like, no, that wasn't you. You didn't do it. You weren't a bully. You didn't do anything to cause us any harm or anything. And he has the exact opposite experience. So what is the truth? What is going on? Is he suffering some kind of mental breakdown? Or are other things in play trying to convince him he's crazy for some nefarious purpose? And this book it gets into some really weird territory. I mean, there's one scene where a person turns into this big human-sized cockroach, like transforms right before his eyes. There are other scenes in there that will just curdle your blood and make you think, oh my God, what is going on here? All these images and all these, it's like a fever dream almost of all this crazy, bloody stuff happening. And in the middle of it all, we don't know exactly what's going on. Does his book have something to do with the way people have perceived him from the past? Or is he suffering some kind of mental illness and he's not really sure what is happening here? Whatever it is, this book is very engaging. I highly recommend it. It's got these great sequences in there. It's scary. It's kind of weird in the best possible way. And it has that mystery about what is really going on. And I really, really love this book, and I can't recommend it enough. Just like the B-movie Bloodbath, definitely pick this one up. These are going to be two books that'll start your scary season the right way. Trust me on that. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.